Say again? Okay.
And that's fine, just remember to turn it on. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and it is 6:01. We have no absent committee members? Two. We have two absent committee members. Andrew and Matt, right? Andrew and Matt. And citizens communication. The Capital Improvement Advisory Committee welcomes comment on items relevant to the Capital Improvement Advisory Committee, not already scheduled on tonight's agenda. In accordance with the Texas Attorney General's opinion, any public comment that is made on an item that is not on the published agenda will only be heard by the committee. No formal action, discussion, deliberation, or comment will be made by the committee. Each person providing comment will be limited to 3 minutes and will be asked to state his or her name and address the public for record. Is there anyone present who'd like to address the committee? And no. So now we're on to consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered routine by the advisory committee and will be enacted by one motion. If any committee member desires to discuss an item on the consent agenda, it will be moved to the regular agenda for further discussion. Are there any items the committee wishes to remove from the consent agenda?
No.
No. No. Okay. So now we're going to go to 3A, which is 2026-0487, which is to approve the Capital Improvement Advisory Committee minutes for the April 6th regular meeting. Can I have a motion to accept?
Motion to accept?
Thank you.
A second.
And second? Great. And the motion has passed. And the presentation, so Matt Rector with the Public Utility and Engineering Director and Jeff of the Assistant Park and Rec Director to present the Conduct 2026-0459, conduct a presentation on the 2026 water and wastewater impact fees update.
Yeah. Good evening, committee members and committee members.
Good evening.
So yeah, this is going to be similar to the roadway impact fee presentations that you saw a little while back. And I'm going to ask Grant with Nugent to come up and kind of talk you through what we've done and where we're at.
Okay.
Great, thanks so much. My name is Grant Raven. I'm a partner with Nugent Strategies and Solutions. I've got some slides to go through with you guys this afternoon. Happy to be here. As I'm going through this, if there are questions, please stop me. I'm happy to take questions along the way. We also have representatives from Garber and STV here that will talk through portions of the slides that are relevant to their scope of work. So with that, kind of get started. I'm going to go over impact fees just generally, kind of a general overview. If this is something you've seen for the roadway impact fees, then it'll be a repeat of that information as the statute refers to as the same. The land use assumptions, the capital improvement plan will be addressed by the relevant engineers that worked on those. And then I'm going to come back and wrap it up with a demonstration of the calculation of the impact fee.
Okay.
So what is an impact fee? It is a means of recovering the capital costs associated with construction of facilities to accommodate new connections to the system. If you are a municipality or a district in the state of Texas, then you're governed by Local Government Code 395, which directs the process that we're going through in endeavoring to set these fees. I will note that the statute as written does not actually allow for 100% of recovery for the costs of new capacity necessary to add new connection system. So there, as we go through the calculation, when I'm speaking through that, I'll point out the point to where the statute actually dictates that the recovery will be necessarily something less than 100%, but it's important to keep in mind. So under Local Government Code 395, the kind of beginning of the process is to establish the land use assumptions and the capital improvements plan. That needs to be done by a licensed engineer in the state of Texas, for which we have STV and Garber here to fill that role. Then you need to determine the portion of those capital projects that are associated with growth in new customers to be added over the next 10 years or less. You can do a shorter period for some reason if that's your desire, but we were looking at a 10-year forecast in this study. The calculation of the fee may include financing costs, but you do need to recognize interest earnings on balances sitting in an account need to be credited towards the impact fee, so you need to account for that. And then, as I mentioned earlier, there's going to be necessarily something less than 100% of the full cost will be recovered. And so the statute lays out two different options for how that credit will be defined. One is either simply take all of the recoverable costs and divide by 2, just to cut it in half arbitrarily, and the other is to do a revenue calculation that evaluates how much revenue new customers coming onto the system are going to pay towards debt service that was used to finance these same capital projects, so giving them credit for that. You take the number of new service units that you're going to have over the system in the next 10 years, and then you divide one by the other, and that tells you the maximum amount that you are permitted to charge as an impact fee under statute. It does not mean, however, that the city council needs to adopt that number. They can adopt that number or any number less than that at their discretion. But that is what the statute indicates at the end of the process is the maximum allowable. So the adoption process under the Local Government Code 395 differs slightly depending on whether or not you're establishing a brand new impact fee, if one has never been charged or assessed before. In this case, the City of Pflugerville does have an existing impact fee, so we're following the process for an update to the impact fee. So some facts have already been taken care of as part of this process, like, for example, the establishment of the CIAC that you guys represent. In terms of remaining tasks looking forward, we have the presentation of the land use assumptions, CIP, and impact fee calculations, which is what this meeting is intended to accomplish. After this meeting, there is an expectation that this body will provide written comments on the proposed impact fee, the land use assumption, the CIP, and the resulting impact fee at least 5 business days prior to the public hearing. So there is some time for that to happen, but that is what the statute lays out as a deadline for providing written comments from this body to the city council. Thereafter, the city council will hold a public hearing on impact fees, and then either that same night or some subsequent meeting, we'll take action on the impact fees. So the role of the CIAC, I've actually just plagiarized out of the statute. I've taken the bullet points in here are directly out of the Local Government Code 395. I've just grouped them into 2 groups. One grouping during the update process and then kind of on an ongoing responsibility. So this is what the statute says is the CIAC's responsibilities. In this process, it's mostly to advise and assist the city council with the adopting of the land use assumptions and review and comment on the CIP. Again, the statute doesn't make reference to also commenting on the ultimate impact fee itself as well, but it's presumed that that also would be something that they would be interested in having your comments on. Thereafter, this body is intended to monitor and evaluate the implementation of the CIP, file semi-annual reports with respect to the progress on the CIP, and generally just advise the city council as to whether or not you feel there's need to go back and revisit or revise any of the inputs to the impact fee or the impact fee itself. So with that, we're going to start with the water land use assumptions. I'm going to invite Barbara up here to just talk through this in the CIP.
Good evening. My name is Chris Liao. I'm a senior project manager at Garver. I also have my colleague Yushi in the audience. He is on the modeling team and helped put together this water master plan and part of these water land use assumptions. So our land use assumptions for the water, the CCN we included, and those shape files on there are more from the future land use. So I guess a little difference you might see between our land use assumptions and what Ryan with STV is going to present, but this is more looking at future land use, and the big differences are probably along 130 between like Pflugerville Parkway and Pecan. I think that's where the majority of it, but the changes are a little bit different. But this map right here is the entire CCN again. All the dark lines, right, the little black lines and darker black lines, those are existing. And then we went in and showed our 5-10 year and up to 2035 projections. So you can see, red is what we're looking at kind of near term. In that 5 years, that kind of orange line and orange improvements, and then of course that green is those future improvements. You can see some proposed pump stations and elevated storage tanks as well. And the shading behind theirs is the different pressure zones within your water. As part of the master plan update, these are the projects that we came up with on the CIP recommendations. As part of our recommendations, right, for the 2025 Horizon projects, right, we didn't include Colorado or that East Zone ISA pump stations that are already in construction. We included them in the modeling when we put this together.
Are these listed by priority? Or your recommended priority?
Pretty much, yes.
Okay.
So those are the horizons where we recommend these projects be underway, design, and construction, right? So that's why 1 through 7 there, kind of near term, and then we have the projects in the next 5 years, and then all the way to the right is the 2035 projects on push further out.
But some of these are already, number 11, isn't it being is it being started now, the Lizzo subdivision?
Is that a question for you?
Yeah.
I don't know if it was a situation started now or not.
Okay.
But as you can see also in the subdivision, we do have that as a developer subtotal, right? You broke it down to the bottom compared to your CIP. So when we look at the projects that we serve customers in the next 10 years, these are kind of more updated numbers here. And it has a horizon, again, for each of those 2025. Some of the projects that we had in construction on our CIP and the ones that, we're here for today, we included some of those numbers in there that are under construction. So each horizon, you can see the breakout of your total cost at the bottom, where we get the $122,827,015. When we pass it back over to Grant later to wrap this up, you can see where those numbers are coming into play.
This is a progressive list, so in 2026, 27, this 2025 to 2030 list is going to maybe expand or pull some things in from the future. Like, how do you rationalize that?
So obviously, I think that some of the projects should be under design in that time frame.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the way we rationalize it is those are recommended projects that we need to get completed to prepare for your growth and to make sure that everybody, there's no issues just based on the assumptions we use for growth population and the amount of people coming in and leaving and all the other businesses, commercial too.
Okay.
And do you know how far we are into the 2025 Horizon projects?
I would ask that.
So I guess it really depends on which particular project. Most of these are in some form of the design phase. Let's see. Yeah, I think they're all still in design.
They're all still in design? Okay.
And then the SH45, that's also in design. Lizzo has not started yet.
only, so from the other screen, it showed Lisso as the only commercial project, or the only
That was
one
only one in the 2025 to 2030.
developer
Developer supported.
subtotal? Okay.
Obviously, you can see if you go further right, there's a lot more as well. 14 million for this
Mhm.
2030.
Okay. Okay.
I believe next is coming up, yes, the wastewater. We'll head over to Robert.
Good evening, committee members. My name is Ryan Owen with STV. We prepared the wastewater master plan for the city of Pflugerville last year. A couple of distinctions from the wastewater LUA compared to the water. First is the wastewater service area is significantly larger.
Yeah.
And so you can see it extends much further eastward into the ETJ. And so that resulted in a decision to continue. I say continue because this was done under the previous impact fee update, breaking up the wastewater LUA area into two. And so wastewater area 1 is essentially west of SH 130. That's the what's you refer to as the central basin. And much of that infrastructure is already built out. There's an existing treatment facility there, several existing interceptors that have been in service. And then east of SH 130 is the Cottonwood Basin, as well as the Wilbarger Basin. And the development in those basins does drive pretty significant additional costs for new treatment plants, new interceptors, many projects that are under construction now, and several in the 10-year recommended projects that we'll look at. But that's an important separation as you see the impact fees moving forward. Looking at the land use assumptions, there's a little bit of a difference in shading. There's a hatching. The top color in the legend is planned development. Those are the developments that are assumed to be within the 10-year horizon that factor into the updates here. Those were developments coordinated with development services with the city to make sure that the projects within the next 10 years are geared up to serve some of those key areas. The solid shading is land use assumptions beyond the 10-year horizon, and those are based on the Aspire 2040 comprehensive plan. And so want to make sure that the improvements that are constructed now are also sufficient to serve the city long term. And so that's the distinction there. On the right, the table on the right divides up the land use categories in the exhibit with what we are using as the densities for wastewater planning purposes. And so the term LUEs per acre is living unit equivalents per acre. And so we basically distill all the development types down into what the typical wastewater flow from one residential unit is within the city, so that it's kind of an apples to apples comparison. The ultimate CIP map is shown here. The projects identified in red are the projects that are currently underway. Projects in blue are in the future horizon, and then the projects in green are kind of in that ultimate beyond 10-year horizon. So this just gives a sense of the kind of progression eastward as the city continues to develop. This first table are the ongoing wastewater CIP projects. The project list has the total cost of the project. That's in the center column. On the right is the percent of the project that will serve customers that connect to the system within the next 10 years. And so that's where those hatched kind of shading comes into play. It's only a portion of each project. Some have zero, and that's because those are lift station decommissioning projects, rehab projects, projects that don't serve growth, And so therefore they don't get assigned to an impact fee because it's not serving that purpose. And so although the total cost of the projects is over 424 million, the percentage of projects that's anticipated to serve customers in the next 10 years is only a portion of that.
And some of those feed into like even to the Walbert Creek Regional Waste. Is that how y'all recommended them based on like, okay, I need X number of interceptors and pumps to get to this treatment? Did you have like a model or a formula for that?
Yeah, exactly. It was a model that was, and projections that were kind of separated by basin. And as part of this exercise, looked at what developments were projected to be within that time frame, and then which area they were looking at.
The percent that will serve customers that connect in the next 10 years, is that saying that in 10 years, these facilities that we're building now will still be like available and accessible, or is it meaning something else? Like, how do I really interpret that?
So I think it plays more into the impact fee kind of rules that Grant will talk about moving forward. But each of these projects will certainly be in service well beyond that time frame. I think it more speaks to the impact fee.
Yeah, that's right. So this is the portion of these projects that are specifically tied to accommodating the growth that will happen over the next 10 years. The systems, the facilities developed will last much longer than 10 years, but this is the portion that will specifically facilitate new growth that we're anticipating over the next 10 years. Without these projects, that growth wouldn't be possible. Would be another way of thinking about that.
Okay. So it is speaking to the portion of the project that will facilitate growth 10 years from today.
Yeah, over the next 10 years.
Today till-
So a year from now, 2 years from now, all the way through up to as long 10 years into the future.
Okay.
But we couldn't, because the statute doesn't let us look any further out than 10 years, we cut it off at 10 years.
Okay.
Maybe 10 years.
I do have two more quick
Oh,
ones.
yeah.
So couldn't fit it all on.
Sorry.
The 25 to 30 projects are shown here, 15 through 20. You see the percentage of customers served in the next 10 years kind of tapers off as we get closer to the 10-year horizon. And then the 2030 to 2035 projects, some towards the end of the list, 26 through 28, are looking to be more kind of in design and prior to construction completion. And so those have no impact fee associated with it because the development is projected in, say, year 11 or beyond.
Oh.
But the projects would be underway at that time.
And kind of the same question I had for the other one, prioritization. This is how you guys recommend them 1 through 28 to the committee to the council that this is we recommend your priority.
Yeah, that's the prioritization kind of based on the development timing and locations that were provided at the time, which will potentially always be.
Yes, sir.
I think that wraps up the LUA and CIP. And
Yeah.
turn it back to
Great.
Grant.
Thank
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it. So this is a kind of a graphic that I put together for it happens to be for the water impact fee, but the same thing would be true for the wastewater impact fee, but it just kind of gives a sense of kind of the proportionality involved in the impact fee. So if the overall pie is the total CIP that's in the water master plan, all the projects that are in there, there's a sliver of that, the dark green sliver at the bottom, representing around 7% of projects, that is really related to addressing capacity deficiencies that exist today that aren't for facilitating growth. They're just fixing stuff that needs to be addressed today.
Absolutely.
The light green portions, around 20%, is really the portions of the projects that are related to capacity that's going to be beyond 10 years from now. So those are kind of taken off the table. the dark gray portion of the pie represents the portion of the project cost that would be compensated for or credited by the revenue credit calculation, which I am going to come back to that in a future slide. But without that piece of it, this is kind of how the statute kind of narrows down the world of all the projects that are in there. The statute kind of narrows it down to a smaller subset of those projects that are eligible for this impact fee recovery. So roughly half, it's 49%, but for the water impact fee, roughly half of the overall capital plan is actually eligible for recovery in the impact fees that we're developing. And that breaks down to about 36% of that is related to the projects themselves, the cost of the project. And the remaining 13% is really related to the financing costs. As I mentioned earlier in the slide, you're allowed to, in the impact fee, include the cost of financing these projects in there, but you also have to recognize that you're going to earn some interest on cash balances, and so this is kind of a net financing cost. We have to pay interest for the money we borrow for these projects. We earn a little bit of interest as we're holding on to the cash, so it nets against it a little bit and reduces the financing cost slightly, but that's what that last category kind of represents. So this hopefully kind of gives kind of some sense of, when I said earlier in the presentation, the statute really doesn't allow you to get 100% cost recovery. This kind of gives you a proportional for water at least, what portion of the overall capital plan can actually be eligible for recovery in the impact fee. Thoughts or questions on that?
Yeah.
Okay. So the Chris and Ryan just went through kind of the detail of the capital projects. This is just kind of summarizing for the purposes of our development of our impact fee calculation. You may recall when Chris was up here, his last slide, there was a $122.8 million number that was at the bottom of one of his slides. That kind of was the overall universe of impact fees that could be recoverable in the, capital projects that could be recovered in the impact fee before we started reducing it for this credit that we were talking about earlier. As it turns out, around the majority of it, 78% of it, is going to be funded through proposed debt under our assumptions. Then we have two different wastewater areas. Wastewater area 1, here again, this is the central basin. There's not as much of a lot of the growth is not happening in this particular area, and there's much less capital needs in this area as it exists today. But here again, the majority of the projects that were eligible for recovery related to growth in this area, we assume would be recovered through proposed debt. And then the second wastewater area, as you move east of the city, I will note a mistake in this slide. The very last bullet was supposed to say existing debt rather than proposed debt, so I apologize for the error in the labeling on that one slide. But this would be the one area where there actually were existing funds from debt proceeds from existing debt outstanding that was going to fund a not insignificant proportion of these projects. So I've been leading up to this, the revenue credit calculation. So what the statute suggests is that you're going to, over the next 10 years, have new customers come in, pay this impact fee, connect to the system, start receiving active service, and they're going to start paying bills. And inside those bills are the costs associated with debt service, some of which is related to these capital projects that we've been talking about or eligible for recovery in the impact fee. It's the same capital project, but as we've been talking about, you can't recover 100% of the cost of the impact fee. So some of it's going to be in the rates that existing ratepayers are helping to fund. And so what the revenue credit concept does is it says, all right, we go through and we assume how many new customers we're going to connect each year, and we assume they start paying bills, and we calculate how much of the debt service that they're going to have embedded in the bills they're going to pay are related back to these same capital projects, and basically develop a credit to recognize that their contribution towards these capital projects above and beyond the impact fee that they're paying. And so it just narrows down, you remember the statute's got two options. You can either just arbitrarily cut the number in half, divide by 2, or you can do this revenue credit calculation. Under almost every situation, going the second option, the revenue credit calculation, is going to result in a larger impact fee, because the going through the process of recognizing this revenue credit never gets you all the way up to 50% of a credit the way just artificially divided by 2 is. So I'm not saying it's mathematically impossible for it to be anything, that it's going to necessarily always be less than 50% credit, but every instance that I can think of where we've done it, the math has turned out that way. So it does give you a slightly higher impact fee, all things equal, as compared to just dividing by 2. So looking at, here we go, going back to water, we've got a total water capital plan of $227, almost $28 million. There's the number of service units currently for water. We think that you're going to have growth in the order of around approaching 1,000 LUEs over the next 10 years. So just taking assumption that you're going to add 1/10 of them every year for the next 10 years is our growth assumption there. And actually, I want to take a moment. Brian mentioned something that I think is important. We're doing all of this math in terms of LUEs. So when we get to the end and I tell you, here's the number, it's per LUE. So if you happen to be a commercial user that's going to have a much larger impact than just a single-family residential connection would be have on the system, they're going to pay a larger impact fee because there are multiple LUEs. So, but to be able to use a yardstick that's uniform for all the new customers that are going to be connecting the system, we're doing all this math in terms of per LUE as the basis. So it's important to note and point out.
Does the growth in service area 2 affect the cost of area 1, or is it all, everything kind of stays in that service area? Because 2's growing a lot and 1 is.
Yeah, I don't know,
thought the
Ryan,
rules-
if you want to have an opinion on that. Does the growth in the eastern portion have an impact on the costs associated with the facilities in the central basin? Maybe more in your wheelhouse.
Yeah, on
D2.
On the whole, it's generally independent.
Okay.
A lot of the projects that are associated with Area 1 are lift station decommissioning projects, rehabilitation projects. There are some extensions. One example is wastewater service to the north side of SH 45. They're trying to think of if there's any other examples. Once the Wilbarger wastewater treatment plant is online, that will allow for decommissioning of some lift stations in service area 2 that were previously pumping over to area 1.
Okay.
But that wouldn't necessarily impact the costs for area 1.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate
The idea is
that.
to try to make them a little bit more independent so that gravity flow can kind of do the job to get the flow to the treatment plant rather than pumping.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. So, wastewater service area 1, I'll hit the highlights of this. Basically, we were assuming approximately 800 new connections per year over the next 10 years. And then, as we were talking about earlier, the majority of the growth is happening in the wastewater service area 2, where we're adding, more than 1,600 LUEs per year over the next 10 years. So I'll also just note, so this was kind of as I mentioned in an earlier slide, what proportion of the new projects we assume we're going to be paid for, funded from new debt, proposed debt in the future. And this just kind of quantifies what proportion of each of the projects in water and then each of the two wastewater areas. And then we assumed an interest rate of 5%, a 30-year term, and a 2% issuance fee. So we get to the math that at the end here. For the water impact fee, we're showing that you have $188 million of recoverable costs, less $61 million of revenue credit, leaves you with $127 million in projects, divided by the number of new connections that we think are going to be connected over the next 10 years that approaches 18,000 connections for 10 years, and divide one by the other, line 3 by line 4, and you get the maximum accessible fee per LUE of almost $7,200 per LUE.
What was the LUEs, or what are the LUEs cost right now?
We have a slide on that.
Oh, sorry.
I'll tell you, and I can't answer you directly because I don't remember. It's pretty close to
Okay.
this number.
Is
but
it pretty close? Okay.
It's slightly, yeah. I do
like
have a slide on this.
Because like institutional is like 45 LUEs, so 45 times 7 is
It's a lot.
a lot. Oh, so I'm not going to do the math.
Yeah.
But it's 140 something thousand.
I will observe, yes, the dollars get paid. They do, especially for larger developments. I will anecdotally tell you, other communities in Central Texas are dealing with impact fees that are suggesting larger numbers than this, some places significantly larger. Now, your projects are specific to you and are related back to what projects you need to be able to serve growth, so not every system is similarly situated, so it's not necessarily a fair comparison to apples.
Right.
But anecdotally, you can at least look at a handful of other places in Central Texas that have higher fees than this. We actually have a system pretty north of here that's looking at the possibility of a water impact fee approaching $24,000 per LUE.
Per LUE.
And that's just the water. And so I'm not even sure they're going to adopt an impact fee that high, but the math is working out in that neighborhood currently. So yes, I'm not trying to suggest that this isn't a meaningful cost to developers, but it's also what it takes to be able to be sure you're able to provide the water and the wastewater facilities to them to meet their needs in addition to, the existing customers the city has currently.
Right. And I know you don't know this because you do water, but roadway impact fees are charged per, what is it, like, it's like 6, it's within 10 miles or 6 miles of that project, is that right? There's a number. I have it incorrect. Anybody know? Do you know? I feel like you would know. Maybe not.
So here they're charging per LUE.
Right. And then a roadway impact
They
fee,
charge per vehicle mile.
right, but it's within a certain mileage, like
Yeah, they use
5
the,
miles.
They use the ITE trip generation manual to determine how many miles a different type of development generates within a certain radius of the development.
Mhm.
And that's how they
That
back
can
into
vary.
the vehicle mile that's generated by that.
The vehicle.
Okay. Okay.
So for wastewater service area 1, we're coming up with, here again, the same methodology, but $1,800 as the maximum accessible fee per LUE. That's not too different from what it is today. I've got a slide what shows you what they are today.
Per LUE.
Per LUE. And then wastewater area 2 is got substantially more capital-related costs associated with those new customers being connected in that area. What it's going to take to serve those customers in that area. So it's a much more meaningful number. And just so this is the slide I was wanting to get to. So For water, the current impact fee is approaching $15,000 per LUE. So this number is actually roughly half of what it had been set in the last impact fee study. For wastewater area 1, it's pretty similar number. It's not, I know percentage-wise it may be a large percentage increase, but it's a much more manageable size number. And then wastewater area 2, here again, we're increasing it by over $1,400 potentially. I mean, well, let me rephrase what I just said.
Maximum.
Yeah.
The statute would allow you to set a fee as high as $16,565, which, if set at that level, would be a little over $14 more than what it is today.
Is that the current maximum or the current fee?
That's the current fee.
So currently the fee being charged is $15,136. And we are assessing a potential maximum for the $16,556.
Correct. The statute suggests you could charge as high as $16,565. It's up to City Council to either adopt that rate or any number below that they feel is prudent and appropriate.
Okay. But based off of what's currently happening, we could assume that most likely they're going to take the maximum or apply it.
I don't want a crystal ball. I don't want to prejudge the decisions of the City Council. I will tell you that this is not too different. The maximum calculated fee does not look too much different than the existing fee in the case of wastewater. So I don't know that there's an overwhelming financial reason not to adopt the maximum. But that is completely in their wheelhouse. That's their prerogative to set that number where they feel is appropriate.
But you do feel confident that you've given them the data that supports that number or less, or that number
I'm
based
confident
on
that we have
statute.
developed the fee in compliance with local government code 395.
Okay.
So this is a compliant fee that they can adopt if they so choose. I think that's my last slide. I've got a question slide. Questions?
I think we've given them all, No.
And so we have 5 days before public to potentially write something.
You have from now until 5 business days before the hearing, whenever that date is, to provide City Council with your written comments on any and all of this.
Okay. All right.
I
And
have,
I don't know if you have the outline of dates that you would like to suggest when that hearing might happen. I don't want to get in front of you, but
That's what I was gonna ask if you wanted to share.
Sure.
Schedule.
I will tell you that we came up with a schedule that is compliant with the statute. The statute, in addition to directing how the fee should be developed, also provides very, I guess, somewhat confining requirements about when things need to happen and in what order. So we did come up with a timeline that was compliant with the statute, and that timeline had a date for the hearing that I don't recall off the top of my head, but Matt is looking up for it. So. While he's looking, I'll tell you that, if you guys have been involved in developing the impact fee that exists today, the previous one, one thing to recognize is the legislature changed a number of the rules around these impact fees in the last legislative session. So a lot of things that we are doing, like the audit, are new now. They didn't used to be requirements in the statute previously. So some of the steps that we're going through and you'll see in this process will be new to that process.
So currently our schedule is projecting that we are gonna have our first reading and our public hearing on July 28th.
Okay, I got time. Good, because I need to do math.
Are there any entities that are exempt or waived from those fees?
Yeah, so I'm going to answer your question two different ways depending how you would mean that. There are some entities that the statute says are exempt from having to pay the impact fees. I think the only one that comes off the top of my head is school districts, subject to tech. I don't remember any of those. That doesn't mean they can't pay them. They certainly can. They
Yeah.
just can't be
Required
required
to pay.
to by the city. The city can't compel them to do so. That's one thing. There was another answer, a different way of asking that question, though. I don't know, was that the way you were asking it? Or
Yeah, I mean,
I,
in my other job, we talk about impact fees a lot for the state, and we talk about what entities are exempt in other counties, and I was wondering in Pflugerville or like state or schools or hospitals or whatever.
Yep. So that's the answer. The other way, there are some entities that are districts that have other provisions of law that mitigate their requirement to comply with Local Code 395. So yeah, if that was.
But they weren't
that's a
included
different
in.
way of answering your question.
But they weren't included in any of your projections or anything
Exactly.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
okay.
If you need, we have exempted school districts and the newest state building from impact
Okay.
fees here.
Thank you.
Answers
And that's the
here.
way of mitigation, because you guys talked about it, and then decided that was a
It's about state law.
state law.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Anything
Yeah.
else?
Okay.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Thank you so much for the
Yeah.
time. Great question.
Yeah,
No,
thank you.
Thank you.
And I would, what are you gonna do next? Oh, if any, I don't know, none were removed, and I guess I will call a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second?
Okay. All in favor?
All right.
Okay, there we go. We are done. It is 6:48 PM.
Stand.